Nat 20. Hi folks, Merlin here, bringing you another Dungeons and Dragons Adventurer video. Here we are then at the end of Delivery 4, and we've got another fantastic issue to go through. So yeah, should be hopefully getting my next set of magazines either by the end of this week or by next week. I will be putting, of course, a video out when I do get them, as usual. We'll do a little quick unboxing. But yeah, so let's take a look then at the front cover of issue 14. So we've got our new and exclusive adventure. Cursed items are covered. We have a in-depth guide to creating a backstory for your character. We learn about the planes of existence and the importance of downtime. So this issue came with something, as all issues do, and that something is another sheet of Standees. So we've got our Dragonborn and our Forest Gnome, we've got a Displacer Beast, and we've got a Ghoul. So we've got some baddies at long last. Hopefully we'll get some sheets of these with more generic baddies. Would be nice if we had an entire sheet of goblins plus a goblin captain or something. That'd be quite nice. Yeah, so we've got quite a bit to go through. We are starting our second two-parter adventure as well, so quite interesting. You have to wait till next delivery in order to finish that adventure, but it looks a nice one anyway. Other than that, big thank you to all of my supporters, whether you're on Patreon or YouTube or even just on my social medias. Plenty of content and plenty of likes coming through. I believe we're now at about 460 subscribers. So yeah, another 40 or so to go to reach that milestone of 500. So big thank you to everyone who has subscribed. Had quite a few in the past week or two. And I'm just generally grateful for the support. Don't forget then, of course, finally, before we jump over to the table, all the stuff as usual. There's a little like button, a subscribe button, and of course plenty of links in the video description, including that mentioned Patreon page where there's going to be a new video up this week. I'm planning to do my rumour video, but I would like to get that out on YouTube as well, so it meet a wider range of people. I want to say rumours, I mean wish lists. But yeah, plenty of videos coming this week. And let's get things started with issue 14. So here we are with issue 14, and we've got our new acrylic standee sheet here. So we've got our Forest Gnome Bard there. We've got our Dragonborn Barbarian. A Displacer Beast who we haven't met yet, so hopefully he'll be in an upcoming adventure. And we got the Ghoul from, I think it was issue 12, who was an enemy. So yeah, right. We'll adjust the camera and take a look at those in closer view. But before that, let's cover the front cover again. So we've got, of course, that new and exclusive adventure, which is a two-parter. We learn about cursed items, we add backstory to our characters, we journey along the planes of existence, and downtime is covered, which is an important bit of in-betweening the adventures. So, right, let's take a quick look at our freebies, and then we can dive straight into the issue. Right, let's take a look at our second set of Standees. On a bit of a bigger sheet this time, as we've got a quite big monster. So we've got our instructions again, just to remind us. So we push from the back, peel off the protective film, and then match up the stands. On this sheet, it's a little easier to match up the stands, as there are 3 different sizes. We've got 2 medium ones, so that's for our Dragonborn and the Ghoul. Your small one for our Forest Gnome, and a larger one for the Displacer Beast. So, alright, punch out our Displacer Beast, I think. Peel off the protective film. Peel. Peel. Come on, peel. I know you're there. I know you're there. There we go. And yeah, so we've got a pretty clear circle there. And we are supposed to match up to the barely noticeable circle on the bottom there. But well, there we go. So that's our Displacer Beast. And as we can see, he's double-sided there. So we've got his actual back and front, which is quite nice. And if we can punch out our Dragonborn here as well. And base for him. Just so I can show you one of each. And yeah, so our character ones have the same image, just reversed. So we can tell who's who, as well as differentiate between monsters and players a bit as well. So yeah, he looks pretty cool, really nice and ferocious. So there's our Standees. I'll probably punch these off so we can show them all built up closer to the end of the video. But yeah, right, let's start going through our 14th issue. So let's dive into our newest issue of Dungeons & Dragons Adventurer. So we have Adventure 2, Encounter 14, Haunted Tomb of the Dragon Slayer, Part 1. We have some pages for Sage Overview, which look at the environment and using items and objects, challenge ratings for single encounters, and cursed items. For character creation, we have Downtime and creating a backstory, as well as the background for the soldier class, matching up with our barbarian character. Finally then, we have locations in the form of the planes of existence and monsters in the forms of spirits. So issue 14 comes with 3 more miniatures that can establish location during battles: Dragonborn, Barbarian, Gnome Bard, and a Displacer Beast. It says 3, it's actually 4 because we have our Ghoul as well. So a little bit of a typo there. We've got our usual D&D Beyond QR code. And of course, a reminder about binders. Picking them up from your local bookshop if you are collecting from retail. They can be ordered in at $10.99. Otherwise, you'll be automatically sent them at certain delivery points, or you can choose to opt out. Right then, let's kick things off with the environment around us and how to use objects and items. Learning how to make use of items both in and out of combat can give you the edge in Dungeons and Dragons. So when it comes to using objects, it depends on whether you are in combat or in the wider world. If you're in combat, it's usually takes the place of an item. You describe that your character is pulling out and drinking a potion, for instance. You could also say that you will be drawing your bow and knotting an arrow into it. But when it comes to using items within the actual world around us when we're not in combat, it's more up to the DM's discretion on how interactions play out. So, the DM describes that you want to pull the lever, so he says, "Kronk, pull the lever," in which you pull the lever, which turns out to be the wrong lever. But yeah, various different ways that could play out. It will simply be the great raises, gates open, flooding the room with water, or even a wall slides past, revealing secret passage. Other things that could happen is the DM could say, "Oh no, it looks like this lever is rusted in place. You might have to take a DC check against your strength." Set by the DM, of course, so just roll to see whether you shift the lever. It might take a while then for the lever to actually start moving and performing its function. So we got a list here of, or rather a article on how to break items. Items will have a specific armor class depending on how tough they generally would be. Cloth, paper and rope would be armor class 11, so the easiest things to tear. Followed by glass and crystal and ice, which can shatter quite easily. Tougher things such as mithril and adamantine have higher AC in the form of 21 and 23 there. We then also have a pool of hit points for the item depending on its size. So tiny items will have 2 hit points if it's a fragile item, 5 if it's a new or resilient item. And then we have the alternate way of choosing the hit points, either 1d4 or 2d4. Then we have an article about items in combat. As I mentioned earlier, you can draw your bow and knock an arrow into it in one action, fail swoop, which is a super action. You can also, of course, choose to make your attacks as usual with your weapons. There's plenty of other things you can do. There's a whole list here that details free interactions which you can do once per turn, but it's pretty much simple items such as removing a ring from your finger or putting it on if it's a sorcery of magic, kicking a stone as you take a move action, pull the hood of their cloak up and over the head as part a hide action there. So yeah, you're not restricted to just attack, hide and move. So yeah, fun things to do when you're in the middle of melee. Moving on then, so we got how to create challenge ratings for single encounters. So a nice page for the DM. A monster's challenge rating helps you build battles that aren't too easy or too unbeatable. So finding the right balance for your counter is often a problem for any games master. You want to make sure that your party can easily deal with the enemy and also not have it that the enemy in question can so easily deal with your party. So each creature has been given a challenge rating or CR number, which we'll explore more over the page. We also have CR and XP, so depending on the rating of the monster, it grants a set amount of XP dividing out between the players. So a CR1 monster will give 200 XP dividing to all your players. So we'll flip over. So we got assess the characters. So when you are deciding which creatures to use, you want to think how strong your characters are. Do you have anyone who's particularly low level? Do you have anyone who doesn't have a very good HP pool? And do you have someone who hits pretty hard in combat but not in any other kind of way? So once you consider all this, you can then choose which monsters you want to include. So ideally, if you have a party of first level characters, you want a minimum of 4 players, you want to have a CR1, 5 to 6 players, CR2, and then yeah, it goes up all the way to CR9 there. So our big tentacle dragon thing here would be definitely a CR9. So we've got a couple of examples here. Gelatinous Cube, Sea Hag, and Ogre are all considered challenge rating 2. As are the younger versions of the black, bronze, green, and white dragons, known as wormlings. So yeah, it's just a nice little article to help you consider if you're setting up your own adventures. It also mentions that all the monsters the magazine includes have a CR factored into their profiles. So you can easily use the monsters we get with the magazine. Moving on, we got a page all about cursed items for our spellcasters to learn. Cursed items then. If a magic item looks too good to be true, it might just have a secret and deadly drawback. So whether it's a mundane or an enchanted item, cursed items are pretty lethal to anyone who wields them. Whether you've just defeated a ghastly mummy and decide to sit on their throne, pick up their blade, or even wear their crown, as the mummy perishes, it can spit curses, activating the curses embodied in the items itself. So yeah, there's various different ways that a item can inflict you. There's other ways that you can identify whether an item is actually cursed or not with the identify spell. So we have a page here all about the cursed items that are within Faerun. While cursed items can be found anywhere, it's often in crypts or unearthed from graves. Museums in big cities will have rare collector's items that could be cursed as well. Curses will vary between weapon. It could be... A common curse is that the curse will prevent a person from parting with that item, which will restrict your players quite a lot if they've picked up a cursed sword and they want to use their slightly better regular sword. So finally then, we can choose to decide how to devise our own items. As previously mentioned, Richten's Guide to Ravenloft is a good source for how to do magic items and cursed items. So the main parts to do with a cursed item are usually the action, the burden, and the resolution. You can change the action to a pronouncement, which will replace how the curse activates. So yeah, the pronouncement or action is the trigger. The burden is what it inflicts upon the person wielding it, and the resolution is how best to get rid of said curse. Quick DM tip here then is cursed items should be a rarity, as they can become quite tiresome. If you're a DM, remember a curse isn't the punishment, it's a plot hook for a curse breaking quest. So yeah, just because somebody's doing particularly well doesn't mean you should keep them cursed. Give them the chance to at least free themselves from the curse. Next up then, we have a page all about downtime. Your adventure can continue in between encounters if you choose to work on an activity, whether it's making armor or running a business. So downtime is a very important factor of adventures. So when your character isn't adventuring, what do they want to do? The choice is much with how they act while on an adventure is entirely up to you. It's always good to get some rest and relaxation. You could even be, as it mentions, running your own business, working for somebody at least, or even training. So we got a list here of all the different activities that you can do. So we'll start, we've got building a stronghold, you could be crafting, recuperating, researching, selling items, spreading rumours, or even training to improve your skills. So yeah, fairly short article, nice bit of reading nonetheless. Gives you a few ideas on what you want your character to do when they're not taking down the monsters. Moving on to creating a backstory. So fleshing out a character's past is a great way for a player to bring them to life in the present. So no one decides to go on an adventure without a good reason. Your character's motivation for learning a new spell, picking up a sword, or strumming a magical tune is very likely connected to their past. You want to think quite considerably about how your character has gotten to the point where they are. So it's a good thing here to have one background and two authors. Take time to read, spend time with your DM and develop your backstory. It's quite nice to have another person's point of view. They might even suggest other ways that you haven't yourself thought of. So on the other side, we've got a list of things that we want to think about when you are considering your background. So things like family, your social status, the training you've had, your background for character, how they are in personality-wise, personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws, which we have on our character sheets. So you can easily fill these out. So we've got an example here of Razagar Stormhelm. So her bond is she owes her life to the priest who took her in when her parents died. Then we got, of course, fateful moments. So those could be, of course, the important moment that sets you off on the quest of adventuring. Moving on then, we have a soldier class background. So a perfect background for a character who has trained as soldiers of a nation or as private mercenaries. So yeah, being a soldier doesn't mean you necessarily have to have fought in the previous time. This could be the fact that you have spent time within the army, whether you are a wizard who has been requested to help study enemy magic items and how to break them. You could be a cleric who is a field medic. You could even be a bard who carries a banner or even plays the army instrument to help boost morale. So we got a little bit here about how to roleplay a soldier. Key thing to decide on whether your soldier is whether you had military service and what shape that took in. You could be a drill sergeant, you could be a veteran of many campaigns, you could even have a bitter prejudice against a certain nation, foe, or race. Finally, we have a bit here about soldier benefits. So you have proficiency in athletics and intimidation, which are helpful, of course, with physical and social interaction. You also gain proficiency in a gaming set, as well as land vehicles, making yourself useful at the reins of a wagon. You also gain the military rank feature, which allows you to be recognised as an authority figure, giving you access to fortresses, encampments. Just make sure you have, of course, your rank of authority handy. Moving on to our lore then, so we have planes of existence. So beyond the world your character knows are untold fantastic locations, realms of pure thought and raw energy, home to gods and unspeakable alien beings. So we have here the actual perceived realms. So at the centre we have the material plane, which is where the world of Toril is. Outside of that, you have the Feywild and the Shadowfell, which are light and dark mirrors of the real world. Outside that, you have the ethereal plane, where spectres exist. Then you have the elemental planes, so one for each of the four main elements: air, water, earth and fire. Between that and the upper planes and inner planes, you have the elemental chaos, where the elements mix. Then, as I said, you've got the inner planes, which are various different planes again. We have the lower planes here. So then we have the planes of law, planes of chaos, the astral plane and the upper planes, positive plane, negative plane, and finally the outer planes. So yeah, the world is a multiverse. It's not just the Forgotten Realms, there are many different ways. This includes official published campaigns such as Eberron and Greyhawk. Eberron, I believe, is a very steampunky sort of world. It's one me and my friends are currently playing in. That's quite a nice one as well. You can even create your own. Yeah, so in order to cross planes, you need to take a travelling vessel known as a spelljammer. Yeah. So, inner planes here encircle the material plane and its echoes. Innermost edges the elemental planes of air, fire, earth and water. Building blocks, of course, all material life. Each of those has its own lands, the seas and skies. We have transitive planes, so the ethereal plane is the most, and the astral plane is the most transitive one. Those that can encroach on the material plane. Yeah. And finally then we have the outer planes and beyond, so there's plenty more to be discovered. Finally then, before we dive into our adventure, we have the background here, lore on spirits. Here we present a field guide to Faerun's meanest spirits, and no, not the ones you'll find on the top shelf at the pub. So the undead take many horrible forms, be it ghouls, zombies, skeletons, but most commonly spirits. So we've encountered quite a few already. The Banshee, of course, here is one of the most notable of the spirits. Female elves cursed into undeath. Field of Spite most famously will manifest their bone-chilling scream. We also have tactical tips here on how to face each of those, which is pretty cool. So a Banshee cannot abide her own reflection, so armour that is shined or a mirror in general could help defeat a Banshee. Then we've got ghosts, shadows, spectres, and finally wraiths. And each one's got a nice little tactical tip there on how to take them down. So pretty fun little article that covers one of the most common creatures within the Forgotten Realms and the spiritual world. Right, moving on then to our 14th encounter. So our second adventure, the Haunted Tomb of the Dragon Slayer, Part 1. So balance for second level characters, use your pre-generated characters or create your own. Playtime 3 to 4 hours for this two-part encounter. So our encounter overview. Laevelin Aldastin was a great hero of the ancient elven kingdom of Illianbruen, famous for defeating the orc warlord Uzgor Elf Slayer in single combat and slaying Smogbane the Green Dragon when he threatened the king's summer palace. Laevelin was accompanied on his adventures by his lieutenant Coravine and his 4 trusty followers. Despite being as brave and accomplished as Laevelin, Coravine found her role in the knight's victories was constantly overlooked. The last straw was when Laevelin was given the honorific Dragon Slayer for delivering the final blow to Smogbane after Coravine had mortally wounded the dragon. Bitterly jealous, Coravine tricked Laevelin into an orc ambush, intending to take him down a peg or two by forcing him into a humiliating retreat. Instead, the knight and his companion stood their grounds and were slain. Buried in a hero's tomb, Lavelin and his followers became undead spirits, denied their eternal rest until the true story is brought to light. Cursed by the gods for her spiteful betrayal, Coravine became consumed by self-loathing and guilt for what she had done. She died a few months later and was interred in Lavelin's tomb, where she was transformed into a hideous banshee. The haunted tomb lay forgotten for centuries until a few weeks ago when the reckless cultist of Orcus, the demon prince of the undead, broke in and disturbed Coravine's restless spirit. If the characters follow the treasure map they obtained in Encounter 12 to the tomb of the elven hero, they can learn the tragic story of Lavelin's betrayal and lay their ghosts to rest at last. So, yeah, pretty fun adventure. We got how to travel to the tomb on arrival. So we've got quite a few different features for the tomb. There's different ways of getting into the tomb as well. So most easily is the tomb entrance, which is a long stairway to a central room, which branches off into each of the different followers. There's a second way in, which is underneath a giant tree where badgers have tunneled into the tomb, but have since abandoned the tunnels. We've got the central chamber here with a well. There's foul smell, a sealed door. Then we have the crypts of the companions, T4 to T6. As it mentions over the other side, T7 and 8 aren't encountered in here, well, except for T7, the disturbed crypt. T8 and T9 then are covered in next issue's adventure, Encounter 15. So for our enemies that we'll be encountering, we have a rug of smothering here, which is a vicious magic carpet there that will, as its name suggests, smother you. And then we have the restless spirits that we are encountering, which are, of course, the fallen elven heroes. So, yeah, this is a pretty fun encounter. So from this encounter onwards, stat blocks include a CR rating. Read the Sage Advice BDM7A to find out how these works. So, yeah, I don't actually see the CR rating unless I'm not reading it properly. No, challenge 2. So he's a challenge rating 2, and he's a challenge rating 1 or 2. Okay, so there we are. Yeah, I just weren't reading it properly. But there we have it. That was issue 14. I'll bring everything back in and I'll give you my final thoughts on this issue. So, there we have it. Issue 14. And yeah, a fun issue. Some nice information inside. More than makes up, I think, for a pretty lackluster gift issue. But yeah, the standees are pretty cool, really nicely detailed. As you can see, the forest gnome forest gnome bard there, looking really sweet. Then we got our barbarian dragonborn. We've got a ghoul, which is handy for the most recent encounter against the undead that we had. And finally then, that Displacer Beast, which is pretty awesome. 6-legged, double-tentacled cat creature. Pretty cool. And yeah, it's nice that we got more detail on the back there, showing the rear view of it as well as the front on the other side. That's really nice. So yeah, the issue itself, pretty cool. Nice lot of information for us to take in. Covering more curse items, following on from the previous issues, magic items. Create more information about how to expand your characters in the form of the backstory article, which is very useful. We learn about the planes of existence, which is quite nice. It's always cool to incorporate the multiverse into your campaigns. And other than that, yeah, you learn quite a bit in this issue. I think it's quite nice. So yeah, I think this one probably, again, feels more like a $6.99 issue. We definitely could do with another issue where we have more standees. I know personally I would probably try to pick up some myself anyway. Definitely want to get plenty more for the enemies. I do enjoy making use of enemy figures when it comes to the combats that we have. So yeah, yeah, I enjoy using the standees. It's quite nice to have that physical representation of where your characters are, as well as the enemies that they are facing off against. Other than that, though, I think it is a pretty good issue. I think I'll give it an 8 out of 10. Nice lot of reading, which is quite good, but we do lose out, though. It's not the best when it comes to added extras. We just have those 4 standees. I'm hoping that we get a few more in future issues. Definitely want more of the enemy standees. So I believe we know that going forward we are supposed to be encountering at least 2 new characters for each of the adventures. So we've already met our 2, I think, for this adventure, which is the Bard and the Barbarian. I believe we are introduced to one closer to issue 19, I think it is. I could be wrong. But yeah, some interesting issues to come anyway. We've got some good dice sets coming up in the near future. And we're also getting some inspiration markers as well, which would be quite nice. But that's it. Let me know what you thought of it in the comment section down below. Are you hoping we'll get more gaming support in the form of more standees? What are you most looking forward to in the collection? Let me know in the comment section down below. We'll have a good old natter. And yeah, until next time, thank you all for watching and keep rolling those crits.